Okay, good morning everyone, and thank you for joining us on this beautiful Sunday morning as we are moving into a new Perashah. So Chazak Baruch everyone on covering the book of Vayikra. We finished the third book, Chazak Chazak Venit Chazek. We shall keep going, Mechayil Lechayil. Amen. Today's class is sponsored anonymously for the Refuah Shlema of all of Am Yisrael. Today's class is also sponsored Leilu Nishmat Moshe Dabah, Moshe Ben Gilsom, Ruach Hashem Tanihenu Began Eden. Sponsored by his wife Yvette and his children. Okay, Rabotai, let's jump as we are moving into a new Sefer, the book of Bamidbar. The book of Bamidbar is a very, very interesting book. So all of those that tuned out for the book of Vayikra because unfortunately they found it boring, too many laws and korbanot and sacrifices, not my speed, Rabbi. Well, okay. Well, time to check back in, because the book of Bamidbar is very fun, very interesting, and lots of stories over here. We know that the book of Bamidbar has in it the spies, it has in it Korah, it has in it the complaining, a lot of juicy stories. Balak, okay, so easy stuff for a rabbi to speak about, hopefully. Now we know that the names of the books, besides for Bereshit, Shemot, Vayikra, Bamidbar, and Devarim, okay, these are the names that we know them by. Actually, we know that they also were given different names according to different systems that were used. So, as an example, the Ramban and the and others, they actually point to a different name besides for Bereshit, Shemot, Vayikra, and Devarim. We know that the book Bamidbar has another name according to a different naming system. Anyone know what that name is? The book of Bamidbar is also referred to, and by the way, if you look at the English, what is Bereshit in English? It's called Genesis, right? And what is the second one? What is the second one? It's called Exodus. And the third one, Leviticus. What are those names? Who made those names up? So actually the translation of the English translation of the other naming system that we have. So, as an example, Bereshit, Shemot is one way, but there's another way. The other way is Chumash HaYetzirah, as an example, ours, the fourth is Pekudim. Pekudim means to count, the numbers. That's why the book of Bamidbar is called the book of numbers. Where'd they get that from? Numbers. It's taken from this other method of naming. So today, I don't want to go into all the names. Okay, we've spoken in the past. You know, the book of Yetzirah, the book of Torat Kohanim, as an example, Chumash Pekudim. Why did they call this one, the fourth one, Pekudim? Pekudim, we know, means to count, the book of numbers. But is that really the theme of the book? Does it really encapsulate what the book is all about? The Chumash of countings, you know what I mean? Yes, the Perashah does begin. Let's be honest over here, okay? Let's quickly just open to the beginning, okay? And if you look quickly at the beginning, what does it say? It starts off with count the Jewish people, okay? And they count, these are the names for Reuven, Shimon, all the tribes. Okay, so it is true that we're counting, and we don't just count the tribes, we even count where they were placed around in the desert, in the Mishkan, how they were situated, 3 tribes on each side, on all 4 sides, and which flag, and who was the head of which flag. Okay, so there is definitely a lot of counting going on in the beginning, but would you say that the counting would be a one word to summarize the theme of the book? If I asked you and if I gave you homework and I said, I want you to think of a name to give this whole book of Bamidbar. Bereshit, I hear it. It's Genesis. Makes sense. It's creation. You know, Shemot. It makes sense. It's Exodus. That's what it's all about, leaving. Vayikra makes sense. It's all about Kohanim and the laws of Leviticus. But how does Bamidbar, why? I mean, that's numbers. It's not such a good name. I don't know. That one a little bit, I think they missed the ball. If I asked you, give me a summary of the book of Numbers in one word, I think you would say, the sins of the people is a good one, right? Complaining, a lot of complaining going on. Moshe hitting the rock, mistakes. Look how many mistakes go on in this book. A lot of mistakes. Why Numbers? How does Numbers really surround the theme? Again, it begins with Numbers, the book. Even by the way, you could say it ends with Numbers. It ends with accounting. All the way in Pinhas, over there, they also counted again. So it's true, we're counted twice. But is that the theme of the book? And if yes, then how? I'd like to share with you something that Rabbi Bernstein says over here. Beautiful essay he has. And it bases it on the Netziv. Okay, so let's learn together what the Netziv wants to teach us. The idea that there are 5 Humashim. We call it a Humash from the word Hamesh, which means 5. This idea that we have 5 books. Where is it first hinted to or referenced to in our literature? It's actually found hinted to all the way in the first episodes of creation. We know the pasuk says Kiner Mizvah veTorah Or. It's a pasuk in Mishle. A mitzvah is a lamp, and the Torah is a light. The Torah is compared to light, right? That's what the Torah and really has the word or in it. Tor, ora, Torah, ora, right? Torah means lehorot, to guide, or to shine, to guide, to show the way. To guide, it's all the same word. Torah and ora, it's from the same thing. So, the Torah is compared to the word or. And we know, where is the first time or is mentioned in the Torah? It's mentioned in creation. On the first day, Vayomer Elohim, God said, Yehi or. Let there be light. And if you count how many times the word or appears in the episode of creation, take a guess how many times? Very good. 5. 5 times the word or appears. Vayomer Elohim yehi or. Vayhi or. Vayar Elohim et ha'or kitov. God saw that the light was good. Vayavdel Elohim ben ha'or uben ha'choshev. God separated between the light and the dark. And finally, Vayikra Elohim la'or. He gave the name of or Yom. He called it day. So 5 times the word or appears. Our rabbis say corresponding to the 5 books of the Torah. And you can imagine that each one corresponds accordingly, respectively. So the 4th time would be the 4th book, the book of Bamidbar. And what is the 4th time that the word appears? Let's see it one more time. Vayavdel Elohim, God separated, ben ha'or uben ha'choshech. God distinguished between the light and the dark. And somehow, light and dark has to do with the book of Bamidbar. Says the Netziv, to understand this, we have to realize that there actually were 2 modes of existence for Am Yisrael. There is a mode of existence called Nes, or miraculous, and there is a mode of existence that we are Teva. Teva means nature. Now, even nature, Hashem is running the show. But I guess you could say that when it's in mode of miracles, you see God clearly. He's in the light. When we're going through nature, even now, it's God's helping me, right? God, I woke up today because of Hashem. The sun rose because of Hashem. But it's natural. You don't really see Him. He's more behind the scenes. In a way, God is hiding. God is maybe in the dark. Okay? And this is what the Midrash is trying to say. The Midrash is telling us that these 2 modes of existence of the Jewish people, of light and dark, of miracle and natural, were 2 very important stages in our history. Now, of course, in the desert we know it was, which mode were we in? We were the mode of light, in the mode of miracles. We had miracles, we had the man, God was feeding us, He was putting us in the clouds, He was taking care of us. Of course, you can't stay in that mode forever. Eventually, you need to leave mode light and move into mode dark mode, move into natural mode. You have to let life go naturally. But Hashem took us for a period and He put us in this incubator where He was raising us and molding us and preparing us really for the natural world. Rabbi Kaplan has a great book called, I think it's called, If You Were God. Okay? And he discusses in this book why Hashem put us and did us in the Torah and everything that he did. What is the goal? And basically he says a great parable. He says, imagine there was a game, okay? You're in this game, and the goal of this game is you are this big God, okay? Make believe you're God, if you were God. And you want to teach mankind, all of mankind, a certain set of conduct and laws and morality. Now, there's only one rule to this game, okay? You ready? One rule. Mankind cannot know that you exist. You have to figure out a way to impart all of your values into mankind without mankind knowing that you exist. How would you do it? Okay? What would you do? And basically, the book goes through all the different things, and what he concludes is that the right way to do it, the only way to do it, would be that you would have to actually take a group of people that are in on it and give them these laws and throw them out into this world, and they would be the ones that would have to slowly educate and give over all of these values to the rest of humanity. Okay, not you. You can't do it, because if you do it, then they know you exist. You lose the game. They have to do it. And if he says, if you realize what we're saying here, this is exactly what God did. God has a Torah. He wanted to give it to mankind. He couldn't give it to us just like that, because then everyone sees him and the game's over. So Hashem had to give us the laws, mankind the laws, that is, through a specific group of people called the Jews, the Hebrews. Hashem picked us. He said, listen, these are the laws, this is the Torah. Go out into the world. You can't talk about me. You can't tell them, anything about the game. This is just the laws. This is the ethics, the conduct, the code. Go ahead and teach it. And our job in this world, really, for the last 3,000 years, has been to be that or lagoim, to be that light unto the nations, and to try to show the world how the Torah is a book of beauty, of ethics, of truth. You see how the Jewish people, we've hung around for a long time. And we're not only hanging around, we're successful. Unfortunately, when people deviate from the path of the Torah, you see there's violence, you see that there's hate, you see that there's crimes, there's depression, there's therapy needed, there's anxiety. All the bad things come when people rid themselves of the lessons of the Torah. And that's really what we need to do. We need to educate the world and show them what the Torah is all about. Eventually, that they'll on their own come to realize that there is a Hakadosh Baruch Hu in this world, that there is a creator, there is someone running the show. And so, the period in the desert was a mode of existence that Hashem wanted us to slowly, I guess you could say, learn His ways, learn about Him. The light was on, we saw Him. This was still the pre-game before we went into the real world. The desert it wasn't a real type of existence. It was very supernatural. Eventually, the time will come that God's going to say, "Okay, you've learned enough." It was like, I guess you could say, it was the classroom. It's the classroom where we're training, we're learning, and then God's going to kick us out into the real world. Okay. Now, obviously, you understand that to leave prematurely, to leave early, would be very dangerous because we're not ready yet, right? If you send someone to the army, they have to go through training. If they go out into battle before the training is over, it could be very dangerous and it could cost them their lives. Okay, so Hashem knew that there would come a time that we would need to move on into the next stage, into the natural stage, into the dark stage, you could call it. But we had to make sure we I guess, cooked enough in the incubator. We were ready. Okay, we slowly transitioned from supernatural to natural. Okay, so as an example, I'll give you an example. In the 40th year in the desert, we started becoming a little bit more independent of Hashem. So again, for 40 years, God's taking care of us, feeding us, But we see in the last year, the 40th year, what happened? We started negotiating with the Goyim. Could we pass through your land? We started fighting ourselves, Sihon and Og, right? We did it. We were fighting. So this is God in a way saying, okay, let me see how you've done. How'd you do? Are you now self-sufficient? Are you independent? Are you able to go out into the world by yourself? Are you fully developed? Right? We slowly made that transition from Hashem, us, and then there was a small period of, let me see the in-between. Could you do it yourself and still know that it's God that's really running the show? This is what happened as an example in the 40th year. But again, my friends, remember, to leave the incubator too early, God forbid, is very dangerous. If you're not cooked, if you're not ready, you go out into the world and it could be, the results could be catastrophic. As an example, we do find that the people did want to leave a little bit too early, earlier than they were ready to. And if you ask, why would the people want to leave earlier? And we'll see in a minute when that period was. Well, why would someone want to leave this incubator? Why would someone want to leave this mode of existence where you're with the light, where you're with Hashem? Who would want to leave that? And the answer is, I think we could all really relate to this. To live with Hashem is great, but it's very demanding. It's very difficult. You know, one mistake, it's kind of like living in your parents' house or in the king's house. It's nice, you get free food, mom makes dinner, but now you have to also answer up to mom. Hey, where were you? Why'd you come home so late? Leave me alone. Right? Why do teens want to move out? Why do people, when they go into, past the teenage years of their life, they want to just be on their own. They don't want to have to answer to anybody. And it's true not only with parents, it's true with Hashem. We don't want to answer up to Hashem always. To live with God in God's house, under his nose, there's a magnifying glass. Everything I do, I gotta now think, oh no, what is Hashem looking? Is he watching? What's he saying? I'd rather just move out a little bit, be in my own space, do my own thing. It's easier. You know, we find when the people complained with the mitonenim, the pasuk says that their complaints reached be'oznei Hashem, God's ears. We don't find that phrase often. But it reached God's ears. What does it mean to reach God's ears, by the way? Does God have ears? And did other complaints not reach his ears? Well, in what way does that mean they reached God's ears? Of course, it's not meant to be understood literal. But then how is it meant to be understood? It is meant to be understood. There is a message here. Reaching God's ears is like when I say to you, you're in my grill. You're screaming in my ear, leave me, get away, you're too close. When it says that their complaints reach Hashem's ears, that's a consequence of being close to Hashem. When you're in the desert, any mistake is in God's face. Any mistake is in God's ears. And this is the problem the people had. They didn't want to be in God's ears. They said, you don't want it, we don't want it. We want to move out. We don't want to be right in your face. Right in your face. Right in your face means death, punishment, tragedy, calamity. We want to be natural. Right? We just want to live. Okay? Maybe that's where the song came from. I just want to live. Right? That's where, right? We just want to live. We just want to be. Leave us alone. So, they wanted to leave. They wanted to become a very natural, living kind of nation. And really, we find this in the book of Bamidbar. We're going to see it just in two chapters, two parashiot from now, in Parashat Beha'alotecha. If you notice, there are two very interesting nuns in the Torah that are backwards, that are not read. These like parentheses don't appear anywhere in the whole Torah, but it's part of our Torah. If you look in the Torah, you'll see it. There's two backwards nuns that are not read. Okay, and I'll show it to you in the Chumash. Again, this is not what it looks like in the actual Torah, but they're there. Okay, you see the two nuns, nun and nun. Okay? Now, these two nuns, they are, our rabbis tell us, coming to tell us something of significance and importance. What exactly are they here to tell us? Well, according to the Netziv, they are telling us that at this point, the people transitioned from a nation of light to a nation of dark. They wanted to, look at the words, Vayisu. They started traveling. They wanted to leave already. We're too much in God's palace. No good. right? Sometimes, like they say in Hebrew, rahok matok. When you're far, far is good. You know, you didn't see your relative in a long time. They come over, and all of a sudden, you start getting into a little bit of a dispute, little thing, altercation. Time to go back home. Sometimes go home, go far. I love you, you're the best. When people are far, it's very sweet. We love them. The Jews said, we're too close to Hashem. Time for us to go home. They wanted to leave right then and there. So as an example, right after this episode of the two noons, we read about the spies. The spies, was the spies a good thing or a bad thing? Anyone know? What do you think? Spies, good or bad? Sounds like bad, right? Really, it depends what mode of existence you're in. If you're in light mode, if you're in miracle mode, so then sending the spies is unnecessary. What does it matter where we're attacking from? What does it matter who's how fortified? It's anyways God. We don't need to know these questions. These questions of knowing the lay of the land and how to strategize is when you're living in dark mode. In dark mode, you need to know, what are we doing? Are we attacking? Are we going back? This way, ambush, tactics. That's all needed in a dark mode, in a natural world. You have to plan and strategize. But when you're living with Hashem in miracle mode, when you're living in light mode, in order mode, that's completely unnecessary. The Jewish people sending spies indicates that they were ready to move on to the next stage. They were done being in God's presence. Too much light for us. Light, if you're in the sun too much, you get burned. People felt we're getting burned. We want to move on. It's time for night. It's time for shade. It's time to go away from Hashem a little bit. Take a little bit of a break from God. They wanted to move on to a natural mode of existence. Ironically, what happened? What did we say earlier? If you leave too early, it's actually very dangerous. Yes, you can't stay in an incubator your whole life, but you also can't leave before the time is ripe. And when you leave before it's ripe, when you leave before you're ready, then it could backfire. That's what happened with the Jewish people. What happened when they get to the land of Israel? They send the 12 spies. And the 12 spies, as an example, were not just 12 people. They were 12 extraordinary people. Tzadikim, chashuvim, anashim, men of significance. And they get to the land, and what they say? All of a sudden, they see all of these giants, and they said, they're stronger than even God himself. How do you do that? The answer is what happens when you leave the yeshiva too early. You leave the classroom too early. You didn't build enough emunah. You didn't fulfill your tank enough. You got to fill your tank and then go out. And then you go and then do. But don't go before you're ready. The Jews weren't ready. So when they went out, they already reached levels of kfirah, of heresy. Okay, so this is really coming back to our question. Our parasha begins with the counting of the Jewish people. The book of Numbers, the book of counting, right? We asked, what significance does counting have? And the truth is, if we look at our two countings, we'll notice that although we're counted twice, they're very different. Okay, so as an example, in our parasha, when we're counted in two ways. We're counted first as 12 tribes. For this tribe, how many people? For that tribe, how many people? But then we're counted in the way that we were positioned around the Mishkan. We said that you're going to have this flag, and he's going to be on top of this tribe, and on top of that tribe. Right? Ish al Diglo, chapter 2. You're going to have a flag. They're going to go to the east. He's going to have Yehuda. He's the head of the east side. And then you're going to have under him two other tribes, Yisachar and Zevulun. And then on the south side and on the north side. So we're counted in two ways in our parasha. You understand? We're counted as a tribe. 50,000 for this tribe, 40,000 for that tribe, whatever the numbers were. And then we're counted vis-a-vis our encampment around the Mishkan. But when it comes, my friends, to the counting in the in the Parashat Pinchas, all the way at the end of the Parasha, over there too we are counted. But the counting there is not in both forms. Over there we're only counted in regards to our tribe. All of a sudden, the flags, how we positioned ourselves around the Mishkan, was no longer of importance. It wasn't mentioned, it didn't matter. Okay? So as an example, if you fast forward to the book of Pinchas, you'll see how we're counted in chapter 26, but only per tribe, per family. We're not again anymore spoken in terms of how we were camped around the Mishkan. Says Rabbi Bernstein, now we understand why. In the beginning of the book of Bamidbar, we were a nation that was in the light. In the light means we were with Hashem. And so our experience, our existence had to be numbered and counted not only in respect to how many we were as a tribe, but also to how many we were vis-a-vis around Hashem, around the Mishkan. Our lives revolved around the Mishkan. It was a higher form of living. It was a more miraculous form. It was around God. It was in the incubator, so to speak. In this square, this box, in the Mishkan, surrounding God. We were all here, and we were living close to Hashem, in light, or. The end of the book, though, already marks the transition, my friends, to a period of nature. We were already done with this. We wanted to move on to the next stage, and therefore it's the counting is per tribe, but it's not counted around God. It's not counting around the Mishkan. With this, we could also answer another question. We know that the 12 tribes that are counted, we know that Levi was not counted as one of the 12 tribes. Levi was his own counting. So then if you take out Levi, how do you get 12? How do you get to 12 if you don't have Levi? Anyone know? Very good. Yosef's two sons, Ephraim and Menashe, Yosef was divided into two tribes himself. In a weird way, Yosef is a son, but he's also an Av. Yosef is like Yaakov Avinu. He has tribes coming out of him. He has Ephraim and Menashe. Okay? And if you're going to count the tribes, Reuven, Shimon, when you get to Yosef, which tribe should we count first? Well, you should count the tribe of the more important one, right? Well, which one is the more important one? Which tribe is more important, Ephraim or Menashe? Well, if you look in the book of Bamidbar, Parashat Bamidbar, you'll find that the tribe of Ephraim is counted first. Okay, so as an example, okay, let's go again back to our Parasha. And you see, Lebnei Yosef, Le-Ephraim, chapter 1, Pasuk 10. It says, for the tribe of Joseph, Ephraim, that's going to have, he's mentioned first, and then Menashe. So Ephraim before Menashe. Also, Pasuk 32 of same chapter, chapter 1, when it counts the amount per tribe, it says Ephraim had 40,000, and then 500, and then Menashe had also 32,200. So in our parasha, who's mentioned first, Ephraim or Menashe? Ephraim, the younger son of Yosef. That's our parasha. When you fast forward to the Parashat Pinchas, the end of the book of Bamidbar, all of a sudden, please turn to chapter 26. Lebnei Yosef, for the sons of Joseph, Menashe ve'Ephraim. Menashe is now first. What happened? What happened? How come all of a sudden Menashe is first? Before, Ephraim is first. Now Menashe is first. Powerful question. Is this a question you ever thought of in your life, by the way? I never even noticed that. Who notices these differences, nuances? Yeah, these are the tribes, these are the countings. No, but one second, what's the order? Menashe is first, Ephraim first. To understand the difference in order, my friends, we have to go back to when we first see the most famous story with Ephraim and Menashe, and that is when Yaakov Avinu is ready to pass away. Before he passes away, he blesses the two sons of Yosef. Remember? He calls them in and he says, Yosef, who are these? And he says, these are my children. And Yosef brings his two sons in front of his dad, Yaakov, for a blessing. Now, who was actually biologically older? Menashe or Ephraim? Which one was older? Menashe. Okay? Menashe is older. Menashe and then Ephraim. So what does Yosef naturally do? He puts Menashe to his left on his dad's right. Imagine you're watching this video right now, the Zoom. So it's your right is this side, I think. I don't know how you're watching it, but either way, this is your right. And I put my older son here on your right. And I put my youngest son right here on your left. Because you should put your right hand, Yaakov Avinu, you should put your right hand on the older son. So I'm putting the older son on your right side, so that when you put your hand on the right side, you'll have the right hand on the older son, Menashe. All of a sudden, Yaakov Avinu does, we know, what does he do? Switches the hands. We know about this in the end of Bereshit. He switches his hands. And Yosef says, Dad, he tries lifting his dad's hand. Right? Just picking it up. A little bit chutzpah, right? How do you do that to your father? But he says, Dad, maybe you don't see, you're getting older. But I put the sons already in the right position, Dad. You don't have to switch them. I made it easy for you. Keep your right hand on your right side and your left hand on your left side. You don't have to switch your hands, Dad. And Yaakov says, don't worry, my son. I know what you tried doing. But I also know that this one is going to need to be on the right side and this one on the left side. And ask the Netziv a very interesting question. Besides for all the other questions that you could ask on this episode. If you want to switch your two sons, if you believe that Ephraim should get the right hand, what is the easier way of doing that? Instead of switching your hands, switch the boys. You tell Ephraim, please come on this side. Menashe, please come on this side. And keep your hands regular. Why does Yaakov Avinu switch his hands? Right? It's like, scratching your ear this way. Why is he doing that? Good question. And the answer is, we have to understand the relationship with Ephraim and Menashe. In what way was Ephraim superior? Why did Yaakov think Ephraim should get the right hand? It was only vis-a-vis in regards to the hands that Ephraim was the right. But, and hands represent spirituality. When it comes to spirituality, Ephraim is first. But when it comes to physicality, when it comes to the mundane, when it comes to money, Menashe is first. Menashe and Ephraim were Yisachar Zevulun. It was the beautiful partnership. Yisachar, the one learning, Zevulun, the one working. When it came to working, when it came to Parnasah, Menashe was first and foremost. By the way, Yaakov and his brother Esav were supposed to have that partnership. Yaakov was the learner, Esav was the doer. Esav was not meant to be a bad guy. Esav was supposed to be the guy who comes out and he's fighting and he's parading and he's creating policy and government. That's what Esav was. Esav was the guy who's going to go out there and change the world. Yaakov is a Talmid Chacham. Goes to the Bet Midrash, he learns, but he can't go out there and handle and battle. That's Esav's role. And it's a very important role, and you need both. And that's why Yitzchak Avinu, when he wanted to give the blessings, he wanted to give them to Esav. Did Yitzchak not know who Esav was? Did he not know that Yaakov was the better learner? But the answer is, of course, Yitzchak knew that. But that's precisely why these brachot are not needed for Yaakov. Yaakov, who's learning all day, he doesn't need all the money. He doesn't need the rain. He doesn't need the muscles. Esav, who's going to go out there and face the world, he needs the bracha. He needs the geshem. So the blessings of Vayiten Lecha Elokim, the blessings that Yitzchak was ready to give over, Those were blessings of success physically, financially. Those blessings need to go to Esav. That's why he wanted to do it. Of course, Yitzchak didn't realize that Esav wasn't who he said he was. So he is basically giving a gun to a dangerous person. We know, unfortunately, just from events of last week, what that could lead to. You give something that's powerful, like a gun, in the wrong hands. Right? That's also a very dangerous thing. But this is really the partnership of Ephraim and Menashe. Ephraim and Menashe, and it did work with them. Ephraim was the learner, Menashe was the worker. And so, Yaakov Avinu does not want to switch his two sons. You know why? Take a look, my friends. When you're putting your right hand here and your left hand here, your whole body remains the same, except for your hands. And this was very important. Yaakov was trying to say to his kids and his grandkids, when it comes to my legs, when it comes to physical things, when it comes to how I stand, the money and the world and food and sustenance and nature, when it comes to my feet, Menashe belongs on my right foot. Menashe is the more important one when it comes to that area of life. So Menashe stays on my right side. Ephraim is secondary in that area. It's only when it comes to the hands represent spirituality. It's only when it comes to the hands that Ephraim deserves the right side. And therefore he doesn't move his sons because he needs Ephraim to be on the left foot. He needs Menashe to be on the right foot. Only the right hand should go on Ephraim because spiritually Ephraim deserves the greater beracha. Unbelievable way of understanding this whole episode of Yaakov. But what does that have to do with us? So now we come back to our parasha, my friends. When it comes to the counting in the beginning of the book of our Bamidbar book, the fourth book, the counting in the beginning is in which mode of existence? Is it in light or dark mode? Going back to the beginning of today's class, the counting that takes place in the beginning of our parasha is all about the Jewish people in light mode. Light meaning miracle mode. They had Hashem, He's doing miracles, the man, the water, the clouds. It's all there for us. It's miracle mode. When you're in miracle mode, you're in supernatural mode, you're in spiritual mode. Which son of Yaakov, of Yosef, comes first? The spiritual son. Ephraim comes first in our counting. But when you go to the end of the book of Bamidbar, Perashat Pinehas, that's already the transition stage. We were getting ready. We were getting ready to leave the plane. The plane has landed. We're still on the plane. We're already standing up. We're pulling down our luggages from the overhead. We're getting ready to get off. We start texting. We landed. Baruch BH. See you soon, right? That is all. Already the end of the book of Bamidbar. We were transitioning. The people already started having to fight themselves, Sichon and Og. People had to start negotiating. People had to start, right? We went through the lands of the enemies. Could we come through? We'll buy from you. We had to start being politically correct. PR, public relations. So we're already moving into a physical mode of existence, a step back from God a little bit. It's a little bit less miraculous. It's back into the world that we live in today. The world that we're in, me and you right now, is a dark world. It's a world of nature. We don't see Hashem. There's no man. We have to work for our food. We have to work for our health. We have to work for our protection. We have to work for our safety. But this is the mode. This is the phase that the Jewish people started entering at the end of the book. And when we go into the end of the book, and therefore, this is Menashe's zone. This is Menashe's house. This is Menashe's mode of existence. This is Menashe who represents the money. Okay? I don't know. Maybe that's why Menashe sounds like money. I don't know. I just made that up. But either way, Menashe was the money. And therefore, Menashe is mentioned first because that's the transition. So I think, with this beautiful idea of the Netziv through the understanding of Rabbi Bernstein, we see how the name, Humash Pekudim, the book of Numbers, is not arbitrary at all. It's not referring to one isolated incident. in the book. It's actually encapsulating and encompassing the entire theme of what the book is all about. It's all about the numbers and how are we counted in the beginning versus how are we counted in the end. Notice the differences. In the beginning, it was not only per tribe, but also around the Mishkan, around God, because that's the mode of existence we were in. We were living with Hashem. The counting at the end symbolizes and signifies already a transition into a different mode of existence, a little bit more natural, a little bit less miraculous, more through the world, having to work, having to do, having to get up, having to figure it out on ourselves, taking a step back from God, going out of the incubator into the real world. And therefore, the counting at the end is a very different type of counting. But I think for today, we understand what it means to have a Chumash Pekudim. I think for us, the lesson is how sometimes in life, we are in a certain stage of life that we are meant to learn something. And it's a very important stage. And leaving that stage, leaving that classroom early, premature, before you're ripe, could also be very, very dangerous. Look at the cost, unfortunately, of the Jewish people. When they left, they wanted to leave Hashem. God says, yes, you're going to leave one day. Don't worry. You have to leave. You can't stay always with me. But also, you can't leave too early. You leave before you're ready. You're going to be uncooked. You're going to be too raw, too rare. And then, the cost is very dangerous. You see it a lot of times when it comes to a person who's, again, maybe in yeshiva, or a person who's in high school or in college, and we want to go out, we want to be independent, we want to leave our parents' house, we want to leave this classroom, we want to go work already, we want to make money already. It's true. And there's going to be a time that they will come, but it can't be premature. If it's too early, then we're not ready yet, and we could get hurt. Sometimes slower is better. It's not always faster. Sometimes you wait a little bit longer, and then you pull it off, and you see that the fruit is ripe, and we are ready to go and shine and be the Or LaGoyim and the Kiddush Hashem that we were meant to be for everybody else. Okay, we'll stop over here, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. God willing, we'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.